Magnum Pi of Initiative 0. Today we're going to take a look at the social maneuvering system in Chronicles of Darkness. This system is really about getting other characters, player or non-player, to do what your character wants them to do. If you've ever felt like a simple persuasion or intimidation roll gave a character too much influence over an NPC or another player character, then you might find this interesting. Like the investigation system we talked about last time, this system isn't about those momentary uses of social attributes and skills that let you blend in with the crowd or win a stare down. This system is part of the long game, where one manipulates or convinces another to perform a favor or undertake a task. The very first thing that needs to be done is to establish just what it is that you want to accomplish. You need to state your goal, and you need to say generally how you're going to go about making it happen. The storyteller, again, that's the game master in Chronicles of Darkness, is going to determine if the goal is achievable at all. Some things are just not going to be able to happen, no matter how well you roll. Just because you could be a high Arctic refrigeration salesman doesn't mean that you're going to be able to convince someone to give away the family fortune on the roll of the dice. You might need to do something else. If your goal is achievable, though, then the storyteller needs to determine just how difficult it's going to be to convince the NPC, or the PC, to give you what you want. Each character has a number of doors. Those doors need to be opened to win their trust, or let themselves be directed by you. The base number of doors is equal to the character's resolve or composure, whichever one's lower. If your goal would be something morally objectionable to that character, that is, it would call for a breaking point in Chronicles of Darkness, but it could be something against their alignment if you were playing D&D or Palladium Fantasy or any other game like that. Well, if that's the case, then it's going to add 2 doors to this base number of doors. If your goal would prevent the character from achieving their aspiration, that is one of their goals, again, adaptable to most other systems, that's going to add another door. And if your goal stands opposed to their virtue or values in another system, then add another door as well. These doors are each opened separately with a social roll of some sort. 1 door per successful roll, not 1 door per success. So, you've got your goal, and you know how many doors you need to open up before the character will capitulate. Great. So, how long is it going to take? Well, that depends on how well the person knows you and what they think of you. Never underestimate the power of a good first impression. In this system, a first impression isn't the very first time 2 characters meet. It's the first time they meet about this goal. So, gauge that impression as you need to. Take into consideration the character's history with each other and what this current meeting is kind of like, and just how big of an ask the goal actually is. Everybody starts at an average impression with each other. This means you can roll to open a door once a week. At average, you definitely better be in this for the long game. Through role-playing and careful consideration of the circumstances around this initial ask, it's possible to make a good impression. This allows you to roll to open a door once a day. Again, this can still be a rather long time for something that you might need rather quickly, and so you may not want to just settle with a good impression. If you make a successful social roll that could influence the situation, say a presence plus streetwise to check to posture yourself correctly and use all the right street lingo, the impression can be upgraded to excellent. With an excellent impression, you can roll to open a door once an hour. If you only have a couple of doors left open, you might be able to obtain your goal at a social gathering that will last an evening, let's say. Now there's one more level of impression that will garner you the character's full attention. If you're able to appeal to the character's vice somehow, or offer them a gift or a bribe, well then you can shift all the way up to a perfect impression. Appealing to their vice means offering them something that would garner them willpower if they agree. It really fulfills their vice. A gift or a bribe usually means the character is getting the use of one of your merits for a period of time. With a perfect impression, you can roll once a turn, that's once every 3 to 30 seconds, to open up doors. This is when you've managed to get that private audience and really negotiate your position with them. There's one other level of impression, and it's not that great. It's called hostile. You don't really want to go there. If you ever get there, you're going to have to find some way of raising your impression because you can't roll to open any doors while this relationship is that tense. If you can't improve the impression from hostile, then you have to resort to forcing doors. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, you've got a goal, you know how many doors you need to open, and you've made an impression, so you know about how long it's going to take to achieve your goal if you're successful. Well, just how do you open up these doors then? Well, similar to investigating, opening doors requires you to pick a dice pool that you could use that would get you some sort of cooperation from the other character, make them more willing to help you. It could be manipulation plus persuasion, but it doesn't even have to be social. You could roll dexterity plus larceny to pop the lock on their car after they've locked themselves out, with the keys still in the ignition, or something like that. That assistance could be enough to open up a door and make them more amenable to your position. The storyteller needs to agree that a particular dice pool would be appropriate. Not everything is going to, again, work in every situation. If the roll succeeds, congrats, you've opened a door. Not a door per success, but a single door per roll. Exceptional success will open up 2 doors. Well done. If you fail, well, you don't open a door. And you get a cumulative -1 penalty for each failed roll that doesn't go your way during this maneuver. That means every time you fail, it's going to get harder and harder and harder for you to actually open up that door. Alternatively, the storyteller can choose to lessen your impression by 1. If he does this, you gain a beat. That's going to lead to experience. I would say that the choice to do this depends on the type of dice pool that's being used. If you were trying to open up a door by impressing the street racer with your driving prowess and fail, you might not look so perfect or excellent anymore. The narrative will depend on which course of action needs to be taken here, and again, it's up to the storyteller. So in this system, failure on a roll doesn't necessitate that the attempt at getting what you want is over with. You can still try again. There are some things, though, that do close off all future attempts. First, if you roll a dramatic failure, you're done. You get the beat as normal, but the character that you're targeting won't listen to any further attempts from you. You messed up bad. Second, if the character ever realizes that you're manipulating them, or lying to them in some way, or that you've betrayed them, well, you're through as well. Go find someone else to help you get what you want, because this person's not going to have it from you. Last, if your impression falls to hostile, and you're unable to get that back up to average or good or any of the other impression levels within a week of game time, of course, well, then you're done. In this last case, however, you're only done for the story. That is, you can try to improve your impression again in the next adventure. Now, there are ways of opening up doors without rolling. If you can find out one of the character's aspirations and somehow offer a quick route for them to acquire what they want, that will automatically open up one of the doors. If that opportunity arises, that is to say that if the opportunity for you to help them get what they want arises and you don't make good on your offer to help them, well, 2 more doors close. You're just not seen as worth your salt. Your word can't be trusted. Sometimes you just have to get what you want right away, though. You don't have time, perhaps, or you can't risk failure again. Forcing doors is a way to get through all of the doors in one fell swoop. It isn't always pretty, but it's fast. You state your goal, and you work out your dice pool with the storyteller, just as you normally would. And in addition to any typical modifiers to that roll, positive or negative, you also apply the number of closed doors that still remain as an additional penalty. But if you succeed on this roll, you open up all the remaining doors. If you fail, you can never socially maneuver this character again. They will not have anything to do with you. Since failure pretty much burns a bridge with a potential future source of help, you want to do as much as you possibly can to ensure success. If this means threats, intimidation, blackmail, etc., then you're using what this system calls hard leverage. Using hard leverage means you're forcing doors, and you can't use it with unforced maneuvering. To use hard leverage, you simply choose what it is that you're using. If you intimidate, that will dictate your pool. If you kidnap their daughter, you'll have to roleplay through that and provide evidence to the character being maneuvered that you've got their daughter. Regardless of what you choose to do, if hard leverage results in a breaking point for your character that is, makes them question their morality, and it has a modifier of -2 or higher, that is -1, 0, +1, then you open up a single door before you ever roll. If the breaking point modifier is actually less than or equal to -3, then you open up 2 doors. If it's particularly brutal, if you're particularly nasty, you open up more doors, but you also you're more likely to suffer moral decline. Regardless, if there are any doors left after you apply the hard leverage, you then need to force the remaining doors open, as we mentioned previously. So, you did it. You opened up all of the opposing character's doors. Now that character gives you what you want. Well done. But if you're maneuvering a fellow player's character, it's not really that simple. This game mechanic doesn't remove that player's agency. They still get to control their character. If your character has convinced your friend's character to give them what they want, and the player says, "Okay, here you go," well, then they get something for acquiescing their agency. They get a beat, that is, a step closer toward earning experience. But if they say, I know you beat me on a bunch of dice rolls, but I still really don't want to give you what you want. Well, they don't have to then. They do, however, have to offer some sort of beneficial alternative to you. And you get to put a condition on their character. This can take some negotiation, but it always works out. It is, after all, only a game, and everybody's kind of in it to see where it goes. But that condition usually is things like leveraged or shaken or something that really puts the character at a bit of a disadvantage with regard to you. So, what are the consequences of social maneuvering? Well, if you need to maneuver the same character in the future, there's some modifications to the setup. If you were successful in maneuvering them in the past, then they start with one less closed door. You've developed some sort of innate trust with them. If you utterly fail the maneuvering or ever use hard leverage, they start with 2 additional closed doors. All of these door modifiers are cumulative. Threaten somebody enough, and they may never do anything for you again. Deal well with a person, and you may find future dealing is way easier to negotiate. You always have one door that you need to open in this system, though. It doesn't matter how good your relationship is. So, let's see this in action. Let's presume that Grayson Bridger has learned that the tome he's been looking for is in the possession of Elliot Payne. He contacts him and arranges to meet Elliot and talk about the tome. Grayson wants that tome bad. and his player Golgotha states that goal. He says that Grayson is going to try to convince Elliot to give him the book to study. That simple. He stated the goal, and he explained generally how he plans on doing it. Elliot is not going to part with that tome easily, especially since he can tell that it has value. Giving the book to Grayson won't work against his virtue of charity, and it really doesn't prevent Elliot from achieving any of his aspirations. Actually, quite the contrary. One of Elliot's aspirations is to understand what that book is about, so this could actually help him achieve that. So Elliot's basically only going to have the lower of his composure or resolve as doors that Grayson has to open. Since these attributes are the same for him, that number is 3 doors. Grayson will only likely have this one chance to convince Elliot, so he wants to make sure he has the best impression possible to roll as frequently as he can. He starts at average, but plans to buy Elliot a meal at one of the University Chicago food courts. Way out in the open where everybody can see, nice and public, no funny business, to try to set Elliot at ease. This will bring him to a good impression, but that's really not enough. As they eat, Grayson tells Elliot about things occult, to demonstrate that he's the real deal, that he can really figure this tome out. Grayson rolls his pool and gets 3 successes, boosting his impression to excellent from good. Now that would let him roll once an hour, but that's still too infrequent. They're just having a quick bite to eat here. There's not a lot of time. Grayson offers Elliot a bribe. He offers Elliot access to his resources for the month. And of course, Elliot knew this guy would pay, and so he accepts, boosting Grayson's impression from excellent to perfect. Now Grayson can roll once per turn to open up those doors. Before he does, though, he's going to try to meet one of Elliot's aspirations. He presumes that someone with a book they can't read probably wants to know what it contains, and so he tells Elliot that he'll share with him what the tome's about if he just gives it to him. Elliot accepts this clear path to one of his goals, that is, to understand the tome. And that opens up the first door. Grayson didn't even have to roll. Now, if Grayson doesn't follow through when the opportunity presents itself to help Elliot achieve his goal, then 2 doors automatically close. To open up the next door, Grayson's going to try to level with Elliot. He's an expert in this, and he's already demonstrated his knowledge of the occult. The best way to figure out this tome is for Elliot to give it to Grayson and let him spend the time he needs to study it. Golgotha, that's Grayson's player, spends willpower for Grayson because he sees that making this roll is important. Also, there's only 2 doors to roll for anyway, so we might as well spend some willpower, Golgotha reasons. Golgotha rolls and succeeds with only a single success. Still, that's enough for Grayson to open up yet another of Elliot's doors. Only one more door to go, and Grayson tries to ensure Elliot's trust that he can actually figure out the book by lying to him and saying that he already knows quite a bit about the book. Now, Grayson's not a very good liar, and Elliot's no fool. His high composure penalizes Grayson's small pool, and Golgotha rolls no successes for Grayson. Not only does this mean that Grayson fails to open the door, but Elliot realizes that Grayson is lying to him, and that closes Grayson out from any further attempts. Worse yet, it shifts his impression to hostile. This is not good for Grayson, who just needs to open one more door. Grayson is desperate now, and he resorts to some uncharacteristic behavior. He throws caution to the wind and lunges across the table and tries to grab Elliot and threaten him physically to give him the book. He has few dice in his pool for this, given Elliot's fantastic defense rating. But Golgotha knows that he doesn't need to succeed on the roll, as such an action would be a breaking point for the normally mild Grayson, This hard leverage automatically opens up that last door. Now Golgotha still needs to roll. He does so and fails. Grayson grabs Elliot, and Elliot quickly throws off his hands, but it's enough to get Elliot to give him what he wants. Grayson demands the tome from an obviously defensive Elliot. Elliot flat out refuses. So Golgotha and Dark Templar, the players, now have to come to terms. Golgotha's character did succeed at opening up all of Elliot's doors, so Dark Templar's character either has to give him what he wants, or they need to agree upon an alternative. Dark Templar suggests that Elliot's curiosity about the tome is matched by his need for safety, and will suggest that Grayson gets to see the tome at Vinnie Rossi's place, with Vinnie present. Elliot trusts the mobster is going to protect him if Grayson tries anything crazy like he just did. Golgotha agrees to this, and so does Grayson then. Golgotha now gets to put a condition on Elliot and suggests that Elliot is shaken because Grayson's unpredictable lashing out makes Elliot think that he's sort of unhinged and dangerous. Dark Templar agrees and records the condition. Grayson will now not be able to ever socially maneuver Elliot again because of that failed roll on forcing doors. The only way that there's ever going to be some sort of social system between the two is through role play. They're going to have to work very hard to build trust between those two characters again. So, I hope that this episode of Magnum's Musings has helped you understand the social maneuvering system of Chronicles of Darkness. It's an interesting way of playing out a social interaction that honors player agency as well, and it can easily be adapted to another system. It would take just a little bit of work. So let me know what you think of this system in the comments below. Remember, if you'd like to see more of this sort of content, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We'll be back next time with more musings. Until then, remember that if you can't roll high, you can always hang with us at Initiative 0.